here though today regardless, right? I think that Business Central is something that's kind of very near and dear to my heart. It's something that I work with every day in many different, areas, and there's a couple different reasons why I think it's so great. I think it's a phenomenal product for end users, and I also think, sorry, I just looked over. I'm like, oh, I should be in another meeting right now. That's okay. So I think that it's a phenomenal product for businesses, right? It gives them a really solid SMB product that they can use something far better than some of the other components that are out there. I won't name names, but they're just not so great. They've just been out there for a really long time. So Business Central gives businesses a better product, but it also opens the door for a lot of people to kind of get into consulting technology and see what that side of the area looks like. And kind of the reason that I say that is that Business Central is more it's a different product than F&O, for example, right? Which is maybe more complex businesses are using that, so you can kind of take an easier, and it's not to say that all businesses in Business Central are simple, but a lot of times you have a better chance of finding a simpler one inside of Business Central than F&O, for example. So it's a great opportunity to kind of get your feet wet and really translate what you've done, maybe potentially if you've been in those roles, right? If you're wanting to transition into tech, and maybe you've been a customer service rep, you've put in your sales orders, or you've done purchasing, for example, and you know how to do that side of it, right? You know what works for a customer or what works for that end user and what doesn't, and then you can apply that as well. So I think that those are the areas that I'm very excited about Business Central, but we've got lots of people here today as well. So I guess I'm just kind of curious what, if anyone wants to share either by raising their hand or popping a question in the chat about what you're excited with Business Central. Let's see here. Let me jump to the chat. I see that I've got 3 questions. Yes. Do you have 3 questions here? Okay. You guys are. Uh-huh. We saw it in a company, but we didn't see an elimination process. Is it so? Yeah, but it runs a lot differently. It runs in a different process than it does with F&O, for example, and that's kind of a great point, right? So I've also spent a lot of time working with F&O. I spent 5 years as a F&O end user, and then I've done consulting on that side too. So a lot of times I'm like, I kind of get confused between the 2 products because they don't do things exactly the same, right? And so the question is around intercompany and consolidations and that elimination process. So in F&O, you're going to have that nice screen, right? And you kind of have your different tabs, and you can very clearly line out your elimination rules. And I kind of asked the same thing too. It took a little bit for me to kind of wrap my head around it. But basically, you're going to set up a batch and call it like an elimination batch, and then you're going to kind of manually do those eliminations inside your consolidation company. But as far as the setup goes, right, like having a different company for your consolidation that only allows those transactions in there, that's exactly the same. So hopefully that answered your question. Okay, so question number 2. Most of the prospects customers are looking for three-way matching. We haven't seen this in BC. So again, it's entirely like a process standpoint, right? So for what I would consider three-way matching, so again, referring back to F&O, right? You have the screen and it clearly tells you, hey, we have these 3 areas and it's been very nicely three-way matched. What you can do with Business Central is you kind of force it in there. It's more of a business process scenario. So you're going to create a PO, and then you're going to receive against that PO. But then when you go to create a purchase invoice, there's actually a functionality for you to, it's called get receipts. So you're actually going to get an invoice, and it'll bring, well, it will bring a list of all of the receipts that you've already entered into the system, and that way you can invoice off of that. So essentially it's creating that three-way match. It's just not like in your face labeled the same way. Okay. So question number 3, native BC doesn't have barcode set up. Is it so? Yes, that is so. You can use different warehousing add-ins to do that, but out of the box, I would say yet it's not, right? And again, something that's kind of standard with F&O. I think somewhere I was recently in some conversation, and they were talking about like questions between how do I know when I should be, Business Central versus F&O. So I think that is very relevant here in this scenario. But as far as that barcode goes, it's not there yet. I would expect in the next couple waves that we may see that there. It wouldn't surprise me, right? Because I think that the technology is already there. It's already in another product. So I think that we could very easily bring it into Business Central as well. Also, one thing that I kind of have on like my challenge map, oftentimes I see like there's these business processes or problems, and I'm like, I wonder if we could use a Power App for that. So I honestly, I don't know all the background behind it, but I know in my brain, we've got some barcodes, right? So you can add a barcode on something in Power Apps and kind of have your phone read that power or read that scanner. And obviously that's just simple, the simple side of it. But I don't wonder if we couldn't, create some type of Power App solution to do barcoding as well, right? So I guess that's kind of the long drawn out answer there. So yeah. All right, so we have another question from Fazan. As a young developer, technical consultant, I always find myself having a hard time estimating time for the assigned task. Oh, bless America. You and me both. Like, I'm the worst at estimating time. Recently, I thought something was going to take me, maybe about 30 hours. And I think it ended up taking me about 60 hours. So I'm billing for about 25 hours, right? And I think that's kind of my advice. So that's what I'm learning as I go in some things. I'm going to do the best that I can based off some of the previous experience that I had. Now, let's say if I test something out, and I think it's a good practice, right? Like if you're asked to build something, then I'm going to try to like rough it out to make sure that conceptually I've got all the pieces ahead of time so that I understand, do I have a knowledge gap or not, right? So kind of structuring that to begin with. And then let's say it took me like 3 hours to figure it out. I'm going to kind of decide how much time did I spend researching that. And kind of judge from there. I may double my time. I may say, hey, I think this is going to take me 6 hours, and then hopefully I come in at 4. I just know that for me personally, I would rather set the bar low, aka high hours, and kind of meet ahead of that schedule, right? And then over deliver and basically come in at a lower amount. Opposed to having to go back and be like, hey, I know I told you that this was going to be 5, but in reality it's going to be 25, right? So I think that those are just different conversations. And I think sometimes in the beginning as well, again, we just do the best that you can as far as that number, but stay true to that number to a certain extent. And for me, I know that other people have different perspectives, but sometimes I'm willing to eat my time because it's not just lost, right? Maybe I'm not getting a financial gain from that right now, but what I am doing is I'm having a really great learning experience from that, right? Like I won't be able to learn mistakes or things I'm doing wrong or things I could do better if I wasn't put in that situation. So there's a lot of value in that as well. So hopefully that answered that. I feel like I'm kind of rambling off on some things here. So, but I'm going to go on to the next question here. How does case management functionality work in Business Central sales and relationship? Sarah, man, I don't know. I'm gonna tell you, I am one of those people that tends to stray away from that CRM capability. I saw part of Olister's session number 2. So if you missed that, check out the recording. That'll be available. He did a really nice job of lining that up. And I've seen more and more recently. I was working on a project where somebody else was doing the CRM case management side that's out of the box for Business Central, and it looked pretty good. But I'm clueless. I don't know how it works, to be very honest with you. I don't mess with that area. Okay, I've got a question number 4. What is the best practice to use security filter in BC? Since it's an implementation, we need to add some code in nav to make it work. We can't add additional code to standard BC code. So when I'm reading this question, I think that I would like some more information, I guess, on what you're looking for, some clarity here, because I'm not sure if you're looking from like a developer standpoint or like a user security role. So maybe you could clarify that, what you're looking for. And that would be for Olwen. Yeah, you need a good boss and experience. Or better to buy D365 BC book written by Stefano. Get price here to get book. Yeah, that's good. And when you're learning and you're kind of getting started on stuff that's new as well, always reach out to your community. I feel kind of silly, if I guess I'm being honest, sometimes, because it's like I feel like people know when I'm working on a project, because on like different social medias or Yammer's or something like that, I am just blowing up with questions. But it's really funny. I always find the answers. Like, I wouldn't post all these questions if people didn't instantaneously give me the answers back. And I'm on Twitter. I'm mm090511. So if you're on Twitter, go ahead, follow me. Love to connect. But it's funny. I'm just saying, you can post your questions there too. What do we have here? Okay, so 5 group of 5. One of our goals is to use employee ledgers for salary payments. So surprisingly, it's not supporting foreign currencies. Do you know why? Localization is pretty interesting inside of Business Central. So Microsoft basically says that they don't support, or they don't really kind of put a lot of work in the development of the localizations often. There are certain packs that are out there. It's interesting to me that maybe, I'm not sure, it's probably too simple, right, to be the answer. But as far as that, I don't typically use like the sales or the employees ledger, but potentially, again, I know this is too simple, but personalize the screen, see if the currency is there. If not, I'm guessing what it does, you may need to set them up as a vendor, potentially set them up that way so that maybe you can run payroll and have different currencies if that currency is different than what I'm going to call the accounting currency in Business Central. Maybe it assumes that the employees that you're paying are all the same currency that the central business is set up in. So that would be my guess around that. And again, I think sometimes it goes to the simpler side of Business Central, but we see some of those limitations there. I see Stefano was answering the AL question. Good, because I don't have a clue. Yeah, it looks like he said you can use permission sets. You can configure all what you need directly from AL now. So that's great. I'm guessing that, I'm sorry, I'm terrible with names. So Yoshima, who's talking about the vendor master, can handle That must be the AL code that they're talking about there, which is kind of interesting. So I've been working a lot with the APIs recently, and come to find out that the sales side of things, right, your sales invoices, your customers, that type of side of it, is more built out than the vendor side. So you would think, right, because from a functionality standpoint, your vendors and your customers, right, they operate the same way from a functional standpoint inside of Business Central. But from the backside, they don't operate the same. So I'm kind of interested, or surprising for me to see somebody say that the vendor card worked sounds like better, basically. So what does somebody else say here? Microsoft provides less space for data in Business Centrals to discourage any opportunity for D365 and F&O. That's interesting. I guess, Kumar, I'm curious if you want to share a little bit more on your statement there. Also, I guess I would be, let's see here. Kumar said, I've been working with Nix 20 years, and yeah, it has its pros and its cons. Of course, everything does. Let's see here. I see some hands. Maybe, okay, Siran, he just must have been accident. I think sometimes we put our hands up and don't remember. I don't know. If you have your Sridhar, did you mean to have your hand up? Do you have a question? What are the out-of-the-box connectors available for D365 products? I guess my mind immediately goes to the Power Platform, so I'm not sure if that's yep, that's for the storage side, is the 80, but it kind of goes on your number of users, I think, as well. I'm not sure if anyone else caught that at the launch event this week, as per the latest news. They're changing the storage structure of it, but they did, running some tests. And basically, it's like if you're a small company but have a lot of data, if you're small users, then maybe potentially you'll have some extra charges. But the way that they looked at it, most of the companies, basically if you have a larger corporation, then they give you more storage. It's up to, I don't know, and then you can purchase it pretty inexpensively as well. I'm trying to find, I thought I took a screenshot here, but I don't have it. So yeah, 2 additional gigabytes for essential users. Oh, we got some boss talk here. So that's pretty interesting. But yeah, so I was just wondering if anyone else had a chance to look at any of the sessions at the launch event this week, which was really exciting. Did anyone else see some sessions? Maybe you can drop in the chat your favorite session. Trying to make sure I've got all of these questions answered. Looks like we had a lot of conversation. Conversation here. Oh, yeah, thank you. This is the one that I was looking for. We just had the picture dropped in the chat section. And this has the storage, which is nice on it. Yeah, as you can see, if you guys pull up the picture in the chat there, it just gives some nice examples about how there's really not any additional storage needs, or I'm sorry, there's no additional costs that were associated with too many other people. So they said they had to think up of pretend customers. So we'll see how that pans out. Let's see here. I guess I'm kind of curious why you like what data is somebody bringing in that they're using that in 3 months' time? I guess like what industry would that be? Because that seems a little bit surprising to me. We don't typically have customers that run into that situation. So I guess I'd be kind of curious some background on that. Or if anyone else thinks that maybe, that it is super small and that there should be. I can see, I can see potentially where a retail customer is, like in that scenario, just from a transactional standpoint. If it's creating a new customer, potentially for every transaction, and maybe the things that it's holding there, 40. Yeah, so one of your retail customers is using that per month. Well, I don't even know what to say about that. That gets a little bit techier. Then I guess then I would be aware of how to resolve that, I think that maybe that's what. Yep, we got another question. Hopefully it's not about storage sizes. Okay, let's see here. What is the question? Oh, out of the box connectors. Yeah, I know that you said that what are the out of the box connectors available for D365 products? So I guess I'm just a little bit, do you mean potentially you mean like between Business Central and the sales or the CRM side of it? I think for the most part that's the one that's most or that's the only one that I can think of that's out of the box. Yeah. What is more important in the Business Central journey career, being a better developer programmer or being a better project manager? Wow. So it's funny to me, right? Because I guess those are two very different, to a certain extent, those are two very different things, right? Either a programmer or a project manager, but then there's the whole like consultant side, right? So there's a couple different, scenarios there. And I would almost say that having that for project management, there's like that time management piece, right? And I don't know how you can be good at development, consulting, or project manager if you're not good at kind of assigning tasks and having a good time management and delivering on time. So I think that potentially in general that would be better, but I think that it really just depends on what what you're more passionate about, I guess, and which way you should go in your career as far as Business Central development versus programming. I'm sorry, program management. Out of the box connector, so why not Power Apps now more than 460? Yeah, that's what I was learning about too with the Power App connectors, if that's what you were talking about. And what's really nice too is, so there's two different ways that you can get your data from Business Central into Dataverse, Power Apps, Power Automate, whatever way you want to call that, right? So there's this out of the box connector for Business Central into Power Automate, and it's going to have like your little Business Central icon, and it's going to have some tables. Everything's associated with the API tables that are already set up in there. So you can do when a record is created or modified or deleted. You can get records, right? So you can pull your data in that way. They also recently came out with an opportunity where you can switch and you can use virtual tables inside of CDS and pull your information from Business Central that way too. So there's some really cool opportunities that you can do there. Basically, I was looking at some things with it with the virtual tables. You can essentially create or like enter data in a form that looks like the sales or the CRM side, but it's actually pushing data back into Business Central. So I think it'll be pretty cool to see some of the opportunities that we come up with that. Yeah, questions? Do you have a question, Nuno? Oh, nope, must have been by accident. Awesome. Let's see here. I'm trying to think of some new roadmap opportunities that are coming up. There was a lot of conversation around, kind of getting master data into the system quickly and what that looks like and how that can be beneficial. And I think from a partner and an end user perspective, speeding up that turnaround time, right, the implementation time, and making that more simplified is really going to be a huge benefit to Business Central and kind of give it more that attainable to any one field. And speaking of connectors as well, recently they just came out with these V3 connectors, and in those V3 connectors, you see different API connectors that they have. And one of them is the regular like V2 ones. Also, if you have any custom ones there, but there's these ones around automation, and some like credentials. I don't know what they all entail, but when I was like just poking around and using those to see what tables it gave me, a lot of it looked like it was around setting kind of automating or APIing that setup. So it's pretty cool to see what's going to come there as well. Yeah, I definitely think that Business Central is going to catch up with this. There's already a lot of AI inside of Business Central that I think that maybe we're not aware of, right? So there's that predictive cash payments that you can set up in like cash flow. Basically, you just turn that on in the system, right? And it goes in there and says, hey, based off of this payment history, we think that this customer is going to pay this amount within these amount of days. So there's some more opportunities there. Plus, because Business Central sits, in the Azure cloud and is all SaaS based, that means all of the data is also going to be combined inside Dataverse, right? So anytime we have our data there, we can use it in that's what I was going to say, the AI Builder, the Azure Cognitive Services. We can pull all that data and actually create whatever data models that we want, right? There's a lot of powerful ones that are already there. So I'm thinking like for Business Central and some of the AI there, you can use to do like invoice automation. I think Josh Anglisi is going to be speaking. He does a great demo on that as well. So I think that, you know, the opportunities there, but some of it's a little bit cost prohibitive. Some of those AI license models, I think to me, what I see the limitation being is that they're a little expensive for some of the small companies. And I think it really just depends on what size company that you are as well. So I know for myself over at Bam Boom Cloud, what we do is we tend to work with a lot smaller customers. Like we work with user sizes that are like, you know, as low as 1 to 2 users, you know, all the way up to like a couple hundred users. But in general, we work with smaller ones, so they can't always afford some of the price around that. So what I would like to see happen is to see more of that maybe be out of the box, or the price point on some of the AI stuff to kind of come down so that it's accessible to more partners. So I got a question about config packs and tables. Is there a way to validate the table before importing it into Business Central? So there's on those config packs, if you look at that whole thing, there's an option where you can actually validate it, right? So what it's going to do, you have to validate it to say if it's good, if it meets those fields or those requirements, right? Like I can't enter payment codes that aren't in there. So there's a checkbox where you can toggle that on or off, and one of them will not let you import if it's not there. And I think the other one says, I don't care, do whatever you want. And maybe it creates that field for you. So definitely something to check out there. Budgeting and planning is a gap in BC. Do you recommend any good add-on for the same? I think, again, I think budgeting and planning is all in the eye of the beholder on what you're looking for there. So I think, you know, Business Central does a pretty good job at budgeting, but it doesn't allow you to do like what nonprofits need, right? Like where you need to be able to set a budget and then see from a purchase order standpoint, right? What is it, recumbent or something, where you can't purchase past that amount, right? So it's like setting a budget, but then keeping people within that budget control. That is a current limitation in that scenario. But I think one easy add-on is always using Power BI, right? So you can do all of your budgeting and planning outside of that. Other than that, I'm not really sure what add-on I would recommend. I think it really just depends on the industry and the customer on what may be the best product for them there. Yeah, it looks like some people are suggesting jet reports. So Power Apps extension via VS Code, which one would you recommend is the best tool to use when? I think that the question is, right, like what should I do to meet the customer's requirements, Power Apps or VS Code? I'm incredibly biased. So I'm going to say that if there's a way for Power Apps to do it, that you should have Power Apps do it. But I'm also a citizen developer, right? I think it's who you ask that question to and what it entails. And I think in a perfect world, right, my thought process is it's going to be quicker and less expensive for a customer to do a Power App versus development. I'm sure that there's 100 different times that can prove me, you know, wrong in that, but that's just kind of my overall naive perspective on that. So that's what I would say in that scenario. But I like that conversation. You know, again, kind of going back to that whole BC versus F&O scenario. I used to say that, you know, Business Central tells you what you're going to do, and F&O, you tell it what you're going to do, right? Just kind of as far as like the flexibility and versatility and the limitations, right? Like Business Central is going to tell you when you're going to stop. It's going to tell you what it's going to do and what it's not going to do, right? And sometimes the amount of development it goes into making it do it is not worth it. But I think that with Power Apps, it's really changed my perspective on what you can get Business Central to do. as well. So it's pretty exciting. Yeah, again, it's just not the project module in Business Central isn't sophisticated, but it's not supposed to be, right? So nobody said that Business Central is trying to come in and be the same exact thing as F&O. It's not supposed to be, right? There's already F&O. F&O is here. Business Central isn't supposed to take over that, right? It was really just kind of here to meet that small, market, and be more flexible. So where I see that being able to go, right, is add-ons and in platforms and extensions that can go into Business Central, especially since it's all, Azure-based and cloud-based, makes it really easy to add different solutions in there. So what I think will happen with like the projects, again, a project for a construction company is very different than a project for another type of, consulting company, but maybe they both need that project reporting, right? Some's just going to be services, and some's going to have some more, complicated inventory components to it. So I think that you'll see different industries create their own solutions that you can just, tap into Business Central as well. Well, there'll be more out-of-the-box connectors for Power Apps. Working with custom connectors can be challenging. So I'm thinking what you mean when you're saying, well, there'll be more out-of-the-box Business Central connectors. I think you're probably talking about like the triggers and flows, right? Because right now it's kind of like limited in that scenario. And I think that there will be. I mean, I have zero power or zero say about what goes on. But like in my perfect world, we're going to see a lot more of that, right? Because I think that there's a big disparity in what you can do right now in Business Central with the Business Central connector with those triggers and actions, and you can do with something like CDS. So I think that they're going to get us there. I think it's just like this evolution. I think that they had to really lay the groundwork and get Dataverse centralized. And now I think that we're going to start to be able to see some more opportunities for us to integrate that in with Business Central. What else? What else? What other questions do we have? I guess I'm curious. We have a few questions about Business Central and Power Automate, but I often feel like there is a very, very, very small group of people, right, that are currently working on a daily basis, creating Power Platform solutions with Business Central. So I'm just curious, either by raise a hand or just me in the chat. Is anyone out there actively working with Business Central and the Power Platform? There's 100 people in here, so hopefully I'm just be curious to see if at least one person is. Oh, it looks like following that, well, there'll be more standard connectors for Canvas apps. So they're the same, right? So your connectors that you have inside Business Central are the same as for Power Automate, and Power Apps, right? Those are all the same connectors, and basically those are all driven by the API. So I think one thing as far as like the connectors that go there, as you can start as you create your custom connectors, those are now all available. Sorry, not custom connectors, custom APIs, right? So you can pull your custom API through these standard connectors. So I think that that'll provide a lot of more opportunities. Let's see here. Regarding job, there are several ISPs with better. Yep. Just talking about the jobs. That's nice. Nice little screenshot there. Yeah, standard. Stefana is the king of this every year. No more custom connectors, support custom entities. Yeah, exactly. That's what I was just saying. Creating custom connectors really required. Just expose your entities. Yeah, which is exactly what I've seen is well, and just starting to work with that. And it's really not that bad to create a custom entity. I haven't successfully done it yet, but I haven't put too much time into it. But AJ has some great courses on that if you're interested in creating your own custom APIs. Let's see here. My mentor always says that Business Central is just 20% coding and rest is problem solving. What are your thoughts on that? Again, I think it really just depends on where you come from, right? But I think I would agree with that as a techno-functional consultant, right? Like, I'm not a developer at all, so very little of my day deals with development. I'm actually going to go to my developer at last resort, right? I'm mostly going to work instead to solve those problems, internally, or with out of the box functionality. So I guess I would agree with that. I think that it's wise to not do too many customizations to Business Central. I think that if you need tons and tons of customizations to Business Central, you should ask yourself, are you in the right product, right? Like, at the end of the day, the cost that you're doing towards that, is it worth it? So just a thought process. Yep, Yoshimi's just giving some more thoughts and advice on Business Central versus F&O and the Power Platform. All kinds of opportunities and little puzzle pieces that we can put together. So and the thing is that Business Central has only been around for, what is this, 3 years now, right? Came out in 2018. So we're just looking at like the 3-year anniversary of it, and from a sales perspective, it's already outselling some of its predecessors. And this year we'll go over that. It's got a 250% year-over-year growth rate, and it's not stopping. So I think that a lot of this stuff is just kind of getting started on where we're going to go with Business Central. Yeah, let users in-source by Power Platform. I think I understand the context of that, but I think, and I think I agree as well, right? Like, because with the licensing this with Business Central, right? Like, you're automatically going to get Power Automate, you're automatically going to get the Power Platform licensing. And the whole thing about that is citizen development, right? So maybe from a partner's perspective, you're like, oh gosh, that means I'm not going to do it. But no, but you can go and do something else then, right? But I think that because that licensing is included with the Business Central or in the Office licensing, that it does give end users an opportunity to resolve their own problem. I actually went live with a customer the beginning of April, and then this week I was getting some emails from them. They're like, I got my PO approval, set up, but when I go and put it into the production company, I'm getting all of these error, I'm getting some type of error message. And I was sitting there and I was quite impressed, to be honest with you, because I didn't train them how to do, a PO approval workflow. They never mentioned to me that they wanted a, PO approval, right? So, but there they were, right? They were savvy enough. Just got this brand new system and did a little research and created their own flow and had it all right with the exception of just a few permissions. So yeah, so I think it's an opportunity for users to solve their own problems. Let's see here. Are there any other questions or comments or thoughts? Yeah, well, good, Kamar. I'm glad that this, this session has been informational. It's a little bit, obviously a lot more laid back and not as structured, but obviously always here for anything that you guys may have questions about, right? It's always kind of exciting. I would talk about Business Central and the Power Platform all day, but nobody in my house really wants to listen to me. So I'm happy to hang out here and talk to you guys about it today. Excellent. Excellent.
Thank you so much, Mary, for all the insight you're sharing to the audience. The wealth of experience that you've gained over so many years, that's invaluable to the audience. So again, thank you, Mary, for that. Mary, do you have any guidance as to where the community should begin when it comes to learning Business Central and overcoming their challenges?
Yeah, so I think that if you're somebody that's brand new and you're trying to get into Business Central, right, and you're just starting off, there's two things that I would do. I would go and it's super, super easy to get a free trial of Business Central. So I would do that. And then I would go through the Learn documentation. And while you're reading, actually do the clicks and do the practice, right? And then what I always tell people too is like make up like your own company, right? So I have this brand that I call World Max, and it's just me trying to help people. But I always use that, and in a lot of my demos, you'll see me refer to my company called World Max, right? And for me, it's like this nonprofit company that sells different services or computers and things like that, and helps other people set up tech centers, right? These are kind of just this semi-made up scenario, right? Like these are things I actually do, but I kind of put it into a business case. So that whenever I'm trying to teach myself something new, right, when I have like this practical application with it, then it makes more sense. Like what is a sales order, right? But if I know I'm like, okay, if somebody, sends this to me and you put a little bit more of a personal, real touch on it, then it's going to make a lot more sense to you, right? It's gonna resonate. Because otherwise, if you're just sitting there trying to read the documentation on Learn, you're gonna fall asleep. I'm trying to. The documentation is amazing, and maybe your brain works completely different than mine, but I just can't. I can't just sit there and read it. I have to be able to go along with something. Also, I'm a video person. I'm also not a reader, anyways. So I would also just go on YouTube. There's tons and tons of great channels. There's like Johan something or other, the coffee mug tutorials. Those are super amazing to watch. I've got, I don't know, a half a dozen, maybe a dozen different videos out there as well that are super basic. And I keep all my videos between like 5 and 7 minutes, right? Because I don't have an attention span past that. I don't care about the 5 steps that go into it. I just want to do it one step at a time. So I've got some, easy intro videos to that. So that's what I would say too. Find the, can you share a video link? Yeah, let me grab those off YouTube. It'll take me a second, but I'll pop this in the chat. But just do the work, right? Don't just read, don't just watch the videos, but like actually get the environment and practice and put in a real life scenario. And I think that that's kind of one of the biggest ways to help yourself. Also, update, like if you're trying to get into the market, there's tons of people. It's one of the reasons why I was really excited about being part of this boot camp, is because there is a dire need for Business Central consultants in the marketplace. My company needs them, everyone needs them. And like we often have, I've got like a group of friends, like Business Central consultant friends, and we'll like email each other and be like, hey, do you have anyone? Do you have anyone? Where do I find a Business Central consultant, right? And at this point, it's like, hey, I don't even need you to know all the points and clicks, right? If you've got a solid personality and you're willing to work hard and learn, then I can make you a Business Central consultant, right? So being involved with things like this event, right? Just kind of like learning and knowing and putting yourself out there, updating your resume. Just kind of make yourself known on LinkedIn, or I think probably LinkedIn is the best place for kind of job recruiting, but also on Twitter, right? Just put out there that you're getting started with Business Central, right? That maybe you don't have your MB 800, but if you can get your MB 800, Even if you're brand new to consulting, but you're crafty enough where you're able to study and get that MBA 800, then you'll be able to get a job as well. So I don't know, just keep working and put it out there because people really need it. So I don't know if that kind of answers your question, As.
That's great, and I think a lot of people just want a place to begin as well, especially a lot of the accountants. So what we're noticing is that a lot of the, a lot of accountants are switching their career paths to being more business consultants, right?
Yeah, no, that's exactly what I did. I started off I started off as an accountant. I mean, my degree's in business management and accounting. I ran a bunch of small businesses and, was cross-trained in a bunch of different areas before becoming a consultant. And oftentimes people were like, you have a bit too much personality to be an accountant. And I was like, I know, but I don't really know what I should do. So got a break, got into consulting, right? Because I knew the product. But what makes me a good consultant, I guess it's all in the eye of the beholder too. But I think what makes me a good consultant is not that I know all the clicks. It's not because I'm the most technical person, but it's because I understand the business concepts, right? Like it's very difficult to teach somebody the importance of the structure of a chart of accounts. Anyone can load a chart of accounts into a system, right? But being able to provide that like knowledge on like, hey, maybe your AP should be in like 2000, right? Or the nuances between the person that puts in the purchase order versus that purchase invoice, right? Like that firsthand, I'll call that like line knowledge, right? That's invaluable, right? Like that takes a lot longer to teach somebody than it does to say, okay, and then you go here and you click and then you point here, right? So super important for those people that are accountants and want to transition into tech. And ironically enough, or I mean, the plus side is tech's always going to pay better. That was one thing that absolutely shocked me whenever I made the transition, and I had no idea honestly what it even meant to be a consultant. But I looked at what they said that they were going to pay me versus what I was currently making, and it was literally double. And so for me, I was like, I don't really care what it is. I will figure out what this is to be a consultant. So I always like to share that and say, if I can do it, you can do it too, right? So I see that, right, that you're an accountant and you want to move into Business Central Consulting. Just keep practicing. Just keep putting yourself out there. Put it on your LinkedIn. If you're on LinkedIn, put like looking to be Business Central Consultant, and the recruiters will eat you up. Be honest with the recruiters with where you're at, right? Whether it be I've never looked at the product and I just have this aspiration, or hey, here's my background. I've got a trial version. I'm playing around, right? Like just share with them where you're at and what you're doing, and they'll find a home for you because partners really, 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 really need consultants. So you'll find some place.
So what I've done is I've shared the community resource, the community forum for Business Central. So that's the Microsoft Dynamics Business Central forum. This is where I really began my journey, and it's a great place to interact with other community members. What do you think about that, Mary? I'm sure you've been heavily involved in that forum as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. The Business Central, that saved my life. This community really saved me whenever I started consulting as well, because like I said, I didn't have a clue what I was doing, but like I would Google, right? And then I found this forum and it was magical. There was all these answers there. And if my exact answer wasn't there, I could ask an answer and somebody would actually answer it, right? And so it was really, really, really helpful. And there were so many times that I would have wanted to quit had it not been, you know, had it not been for the community. And it's kind of funny. I've got an event coming up in a couple of weeks where we're doing, it's like battle of the ERPs, right? So it's Business Central versus F&O. And Dr. Ludwig Reinhardt, right? Any of us in the ERP scenario probably knows that name. He does F&O, right? And he is all about F&O. And he would answer all of my questions in that community forum. So anyway, so he's going to be in this like ERP side of it that I'm going to battle him in ERPs now. So I think it's pretty cool that I get to, I don't know, I guess meet somebody that helped me so much getting started. So yeah, that's how I feel about the community, right? And the business central, that community is actually also what led me to Raz and his team in the D365 Saturdays. So yeah, very very near and dear to my heart.
And I see Ryu-san has shared some interesting statistics on how people learn. Very interesting. So thank you, Ryu-san, for sharing those useful statistics. That's been a very useful resource to confirm the different places that people actually, I guess, everyone has different ways of learning, but that's interesting to see that one of the highest forms of learning is self-study and Microsoft Learn, as well as through a project as being the key areas of learning. And that's very, very interesting. Awesome. Fantastic. So one final thing. So this has been fantastic, and I think Mary's going to need a big cup of tea after this, right? After this non-stop Q&A session. So I think everyone's very, very, we're very grateful, Mary, for you for sharing your insights with your honest opinions. I know it's hard sometimes to share your honest opinion on topical and controversial issues, but I think it's been very, very insightful. So thank you once again. Mary, do you have any final announcements to make? You mentioned the battle of the ERPs. Do you have any other announcements you'd like to make?
I don't. I wish I had something great. I don't know. I mean, I guess my only announcement would just be a word of wisdom, and it's just make the most you can out of this event. And if you need any help or have any questions, feel free to connect with me.
Well, there you go. That's Mary. So Mary's been doing lots of stuff. She's mentioned lots of things about World Max and helping single parents as well get into tech. And so yeah, she's doing lots of stuff. So make sure you connect. So please, Mary, share your connection details, Twitter and LinkedIn or whatever you'd like, so that people know how to keep in touch with you and get involved in those activities.
Yeah, absolutely.
Fantastic.
Absolutely, will do.
Fantastic. And on the topic of learning, on Learning Business Central, we're going to share the discount code. So we've teamed up with Pact Publishing, and we have shared the discount code. So I'm hoping you can see the discount code for Mastering Business Central. Okay. Let's try it again. I think there you go. So I've shared the discount code as a 30% discount code for the book on Mastering Business Central. And it's by none other than the author who's up next. So our next speaker is Stefano De Miliani. He's a well-known Microsoft MVP on Business Central. He's authored many books on Business Central, and we are giving away his book. So we do have some copies we're giving away. We already have some winners already, but we also have a discount code because we've only got so many copies that we can give away. And if you want to get your hands on that book, you can do that now with that 30% discount code. It's only valid for this month. So make sure you take advantage of that discount code. So that's Mastering Dynamics 365 Business Central by Stefano De Miliani. And if you want to know who he is, here he is now. Stefano.
Hi all. Thanks for having me to this event, and thanks all for joining this event. I'm excited to know who will win the free copies of that books.
Fantastic. So Stefano's joining us from Italy.
Yes, I will share my screen. If just only 1 second. And if you can confirm that you can see my screen, please.
Yes, we can, Stefano.
Okay, thank you very much. In this 1 hour,